Dogs are not our whole life, but they make our lives whole. That was said by photographer Roger Karras. Maybe you are or aren't a dog person. I'm a dog person. We have 2 pups at home, Tater, who is a pit bull cattle dog mix, and Audrey Hepburn, who is a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. I will let y'all figure out which dog was my husband's when we got married. But in any event, we love our dogs. Whether or not you're a dog person, there's pretty much no denying that dogs hold a special place in our life and in society. I remember when I was in high school, I got really sick and spent a few weeks in the hospital. The best day of the week was when the therapy dog came by. I never wanted those moments to end. Dogs can bring so much to a family, to a person, to a community. They protect, they nurture, they cuddle, they play, they heal. They are a gift. My guest today had a passion for helping dogs and humans and found a way to have an impact on both. Welcome to Business with Purpose. I'm your host, Molly Stillman of StillBeingMolly.com, and this show is all about bringing you the stories behind the brands, companies, and small businesses that are changing the world. Each week, I interview an entrepreneur, CEO, nonprofit director, community leader, or just an amazing person who is trying to make a positive impact not only through their personal life, but also with their professional career. My goal is to show you that no matter what you do for a living, you can make an impact right where you are. My guest this week is Marshall Morris, co-founder of iHeartDogs.com, the leading profit-for-purpose pet goods manufacturer and e-commerce retailer that supports animal shelters and rescue organizations across the nation. But before we dive in, I just want to mention our sponsor of the show, and that is Cultivate What Matters. With an ever-growing list of to-dos, it's so easy to feel overwhelmed and dispassionate by the tasks on your plate, and disappointed that you're not spending enough time doing the things you love and caring for the people you love. The ladies at Cultivate What Matters want to press the reset button. They believe your time can be spent intentionally and that your to-do lists can be simplified by uncovering meaningful goals and taking action on them little by little. In doing this, we learn to celebrate progress, not perfection. Cultivate What Matters was created to give you the community, resources, and encouragement to realize that you can make great things, big or small, happen. You can find out more at stillbeingmolly.com/cultivate, or you can go back to episode 37 of the podcast to hear my interview with my sweet friend Laura Casey, who is the founder of Cultivate What Matters. All right, now without further ado, on to my conversation with Marshall. Hey, Marshall, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I am pumped to have you on. So this will be, your episode is episode 119. And in 119 episodes, I am sad to say, well, maybe excited to say, I don't know. It depends on how we want to view this. I think you are the first company where we're talking about a business with purpose, but just, I mean, I'm excited to hear your story, but really what you do is benefiting dogs. And like, I don't think I've had like any animal people on here yet. And I'm a little embarrassed to say that, considering I have 2 dogs of my own at home and I'm a huge dog person. And I'm like, why haven't I had any dog people on?
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's deeper than that, which is great. Like,
yeah.
Pets matter because people matter.
Yeah.
And so like the really cool thing is like we're doing that for animals, but actually at the end of the day, there's human world impact. And we also do other stuff.
Yeah.
Just for people as well. But yeah, we love this world and we love giving back. So
yeah, I'm so excited just to hear all of the entire story. So we're going to kick it off and have you give us the Marshall 101.
Yeah.
So tell us your story and how, where you came from and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. And I love the business with purpose because that's kind of my journey. After, and this I'll give you guys this will be like the quick 10,000 foot view. So, after high school, my parents, I came from a family that was, that grew up in the church. So my dad's a pastor, my grandfather's a pastor, and it just kind of goes. And they're servant minded people. So I kind of grew up with a heart to serve people. But I also saw both sides of it where they were, I think my family a lot of times would maybe overserve a little bit, And then I was just wired for business from day one. Like from day one, I was selling, I would get free candy and resell it. Like that was just it. So
yeah,
I was always, in the business mind. So I had both those kind of things. So after high school, it was like, hey, you want to go to college? And I wasn't necessarily the greatest student because I was very distracted. I had ADHD pretty bad. So the military was the next option because they would take you and all you had to do was listen. So joined the military, spent 4 years there, and then was supposed to go to college, but 9/11 happened while I was training, and they ended up being deployed. Now, I got deployed in New York City,
Oh,
which is
wow.
all my friends went overseas, but it's kind of luck of the draw. So I had a top secret clearance, and I would actually work a 12-hour shift guarding planes that were flying supplies. And so if you've ever been awake at night for a long period of time, it's crazy. So for me, it was like all I could do is read because I had to stay awake. So I really started studying business at that point in time in my life,
Yeah.
and learning from books and stuff like that. And then eventually, after it was over, I moved to California, and been kind of involved in businesses. And the businesses I initially were in, I was either in jobs or sales or whatever. And we didn't really have like a connected purpose. They were just kind of like jobs, right? So
Yeah.
you get a paycheck, you go home, that's it. And I just felt my heart, like growing up a servant, right? Being a family that's servant minded was just like, I want to do more.
Yeah.
And so through just a lot of different things, got on the internet. A friend, I had been laid off, and a friend said to me, "Hey, my friend has a website. He wants someone to sell stuff." Now I've sold, at that point in time, I was like, whatever I can do to make money, I would sell, work at cell phone stores. I sold tons of things, right? That was just
Yeah.
the skill set to like make money. And I was like, nah, everyone has a website, and by that point in time, I had never actually even checked, like other than checking my email, like that was basically my proficiency in the internet. And, in like Craigslist or whatever, right? Like it was so, and he was like, I said, everyone has a website. And so next month he said, hey, my friend has this website. He wants you to sell advertising. I'm like, everyone has a website, dude. I need a real job,
Yeah.
And then they asked me again. So third month, I went and looked at it, and I'm like, there's something here. And it essentially was like an auto trader of sorts.
Okay.
So it was more of a way for me to get my feet wet. So like, I was like, okay, I'm unemployed and I need to do something, right? So I just like, went after it. I was like, all right, let's figure it out. Like, and that's one thing I've learned in the pursuit of business is like, information is your greatest asset. So just learning, and I'm a kinetic learner. I have to be hands-on.
Yeah.
So I remember I made the first call. I was like, hey, I'm going to call State Farm and sell them auto insurance leads or something, right?
Yeah.
I call and they just hung up on me, just click. But the crazy thing is 3 years later, we sold that business for 7 figures.
Wow.
And and it was like, whoa, this is really cool. And during that period of time, I had become an expert because I just kept doing over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
Right? Yep. And so then the next one was like, okay, what's next? And so I did some stuff online, same field. And then then all of a sudden, I think everything came together, right? It's just divine intervention.
Yeah.
I met my partner now, and he had been starting building these communities online. They happen to be in the pet world. They're for dogs and cats. And we run right now, for example, like we've expanded those. We run 100 Facebook pages.
Wow.
We run 80 Facebook groups. We have over 30 million fans across social media.
Wow.
And so we started building these. And so so he was like, hey, this is really cool because, and I'm like, there's a business here, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, but like, let's all, and he was like, and then the community was like, hey, we love what you're doing. We also love giving back. And I'm like, all right, like, let's work this out. So we put this together and we said, okay, we're going to build products and services for the pet market. And then like toys or supplements or whatever they want, we're going to build for them. We're going to make sure they all give back in a really big way. And the DNA of giving was actually some of the first discussions we have when we have any product. How is this going to give back?
Yeah.
And we've kind of integrated that. So now we're 4 years old, and so the cool thing is we've been able to roll out programs that are human focused. For example, like we fund veterans who have PTSD. We help provide them with service animals. There's a lot of really cool things there. But I've been able to take kind of the business end of it and the purpose end of it and put them together. And I feel like there's no greater place to live, no matter what it looks like, to have profits and purpose connected.
Yeah.
I think it's a very powerful force.
Absolutely. Now, so you currently, it sounds like you have your hands in a lot of different hats or something, or I don't know. What's the phrase? Something like that. But right now is your main focus iHeartDogs.com, and then you have kind of these other. Now I have to ask. You said you guys have like 80 Facebook pages, lots of groups, 30 million people across the online community. what kinds of Facebook pages and groups are, this is mainly for my own selfish curiosity.
Yeah. Okay, so great. So like, we're all about serving a community, so we just would roll out. So if you had so we tried to figure out like how can people connect the most, and we love connecting people. And so we have our main page is I Heart Dogs. It's like close to 4 million fans.
Yeah.
But like then we realized like, yeah, you're a dog lover, but then actually you're that breed of dog lover, right? So it's the niche. And this is any business, by the way. I think there's this phrase like you find riches in niches. It's true. It's like you serve people so much more when you're closer to them.
Right, for sure.
And so like all the other pages are like, I love my pit bull, or I love my, German Shepherd or whatever. Then there's a group for that.
Yeah.
And a lot of that happens. So,
and dog people are like, they're hardcore. Dog people get hardcore, especially like when you get down into certain real obscure breeds. Like people are hardcore. I'm just saying, and this is coming from someone who owns 2 dogs.
Yeah, no. I totally like that. There's passion. So like one of the things is I love is when you can build a business around people's passions, and you're able to like walk alongside those people. There's so much positive energy that comes from that. When we go Facebook Live, for example, and I talk, and I've been trying to do more and more video. I'm not as good as you are, but I'm learning. I learned from you too. It's fantastic. Presence is so underrated in some ways. It's like it's a difficult thing, like I always think like, oh, you go on video or you do a podcast, right? It's like there's so many pieces.
Yeah, so many pieces.
And so when I go live, I'm like, hey, and then literally it's like hundreds of people all over the world. It's mind-boggling. Like every continent. Hey, I'm in South Africa. Hey, it's like, whoa. So it's one of those things where we build the pages, but this idea of like when you have passion and you can live in people's passion, there's so much positive energy that happens. There's just so many positive things that happen.
Well, and I think there's another point that you said that I think was really interesting, because you said from the beginning that growing up, a person of faith, growing up, you're a pastor, your grandfather, all that going back, or your dad was a pastor, and going back generations, they were all pastors.
Yeah.
And you just had this servant heart, and that was instilled in you. But then kind of after you got out of the military, like you were saying, you were kind of just really focused on whatever you could do to make money. And then as you began to get into doing, working with I Heart Dogs and really focusing on this, and I love what you said about the community began to speak up and say, hey, we want to give back. And that is so important, because so many business owners are so focused on their own agendas, on their own profit margins, on their own bottom line, that they quit listening to the people that they were there to serve in the first place.
Oh yeah, and I think this is one of the biggest mistakes. Yeah, yep. And I think what's one of the biggest mistakes businesses make is they get comfortable, and they think they know everything. And so for us, it's actually like, so people say a lot of questions. So like I'll be like, well, you do stuff with dogs, not people, right? Like, and there's some people who are like, no, dogs, dogs over people, right? It's like, exactly. It's like we give back to the communities in which we serve. Like that's the kind of the model for us. And I think that like if you do that well and you make good, sound business decisions, it can work out on both ends of the table. You can be profitable, and you can also do a ton in the world. And that's just the sweet spot, I think. Absolutely.
And there are so many people that just forget that is possible. And that was part of the reason I even started this podcast, was to just begin to educate people and consumers and business owners and entrepreneurs and wantrepreneurs and all those types of people that like, it does not have to be, you don't have to sacrifice your family. You don't have to sacrifice your morals. You don't have to sacrifice yourself, your life for the bottom line. You don't have to step on the little guy to get to where you want to be. You can run an extremely profitable business that takes care of yourself and your employees and your people, and you're able to pour into those immediately around you while also having a greater impact on others. And I love what you said, how like there's yes, there are people who like they would absolutely prioritize dogs over people. Don't get me wrong. I love my dogs. I love them so much.
Yeah.
They are the best. But like if I have to choose, like I'm gonna choose my family and my people over my dogs.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I don't think people should abuse dogs. I own one of our dogs is a pit bull mix. I love my pitty. Like
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like they're not people. So
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, and some people disagree with you.
Oh,
but,
for sure.
Yeah. But I think, and think about the impact. It's not just like, and you said so many things there that I was like, want to talk about, but
yeah, absolutely.
It's like, we're also think about this. So like building there's the outward impact of like, it's also the inward of the team. And we have 60 people. We have people on 8 different continents. We have teams that speak like, I think we speak like 10 or 15 languages between all of us.
Wow. That's awesome.
And so like, it's like, that is so freaking cool to me. Right. Like just, and then being in the office, like we have a team there, and like we're able to. Our goal is to give them the life that we wanted when we were employees. Yeah. Where like they work remote a few days a week, we give them a lot of flexibility. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like we try to give them as much opportunity as possible.
Yeah, it's amazing.
A safe place to fail, like things like that, like we wanted. So there's this all internal impact too, and I think that I think that if you really like the biggest impact, it's like some businesses will go as far as to like, well, let's slap a donation on something, you know, like let's like make ourselves feel good, or it's more for marketing purposes. Yep. And I feel bad for them because they're really missing the point. Yes. If you do it genuinely and you really care about like what the impact you're making, everything changes. Like, and one thing I'll say too, you mentioned about like, people feel like they need to grind it out or work really hard, or like whatever pace you set in the beginning, you tend to end up running long term. Yeah. So like if you go and you're like, I'm going to work 50-hour weeks, and like I'm going to ask my family I'm going to borrow time from them to do, you know, all this stuff, and hopefully one day I can not have to borrow time for them. Like it rarely works out. Yeah. Like I would say build the business you want in the beginning. Like if you own a business where you work part-time and that it's all your income, like how do you do that? Right. Like, and then you filter those opportunities. Like, okay, is this going to make me work more or less? Does this provide more income, less income? Like, you can, like, we have a lot more control than we realize over, you know, what we do. Yeah. And we can define that life. And then the third thing I would say, hitting on your point, is like, what I had to do to get to the point where I understood how to be a business person, an entrepreneur, and purpose. Like, I needed to go through that gamut. You know, I needed to run through that, like, those lessons. So like I said, a lot of businesses early on didn't have really a purpose. I think that's okay. Like, you got to learn, and you got to acquire. So it's like, if you're in a place right now, and this is to your listeners or anyone, if you're in a place right now where you're like, my business, I don't have purpose in my life in this area or whatever, like, think also, is this am I learning a skill set that I will eventually be able to apply in really big ways? You know, and so and a lot of times we go through seasons where we are learning and we need to learn, and then the next season we're able to actually leverage that and be the expert, and then add more and more in there.
Oh man, there's so many points there that were just amazing. And one in particular just really resonated with me personally right now. Our church, the church that my family and I go to, our pastor actually this past weekend started a sermon series on anxiety, and it was literally called Overwhelmed, overcoming anxiety, and talking about, you know, how do we really pursue Jesus and as a part of overcoming our anxiety. But there was a quote that he shared that was so, I was just like, yes, I'd never thought of it that way. And he was like, there's a difference between being busy and a difference between being hurried. And a lot of times we get so wrapped up in the glorification of being busy and hurried and all of these things. And we like you were saying, we work 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and we glorify this busy, hurried life. And the quote that he said was, I believe it was by Dallas Willard, and it was something to the effect of, Jesus was often busy, but he was never hurried. Like, he always had a lot to do, but he was never in a hurry. And it was like,
Yeah.
for the first time, it was like my brain went, oh, yeah. Like Jesus had so much to do, but did he ever act like he was in a hurry? Did he give every single person that came to him and looked him in the eye the time of day? And did he like call him by name and he took time to be with them? Like, he's the Son of God and he is like, he's got a lot to do, but yet he took time to be intentional with every single person that he met, and he loved them right where they were. And like, it just, how do we live like that? Like, yes, we are going to be busy. We live in a culture and a society as we run our businesses and our families and all those things where we're gonna be busy. But how do we not be in a hurry so that we don't miss stuff? You know?
Oh man, and yeah, even deeper. Like, think about all the miracles he performed. A lot of them were at destinations they were on along the way, and so yes, man, just before this call, I had to call my life coach, and this is one of the issues is that, like, I think personally, and a lot of people probably fall in this camp too, is we get a lot of self-value or self-worth out of being busy.
Yeah,
it makes us feel important. It makes us feel like we are contributing. But the craziest thing is, like, they see, I think this is and I may butcher this, it's like big doors swing on small hinges or something like that. It's like, the reality is, like, if you look at the things that are most important that you've done in personal business, it boils down to a few things, like the most important things. And so, like, part of and it's crazy you say that, because part of like this next season I'm in is actually doing less. Yeah. Which is fundamentally hard for me, because I've been the guy who would work harder if I had, like, that was my MO for so long. It was like I may not, cause I never got to finish college. So it was like, in the world, it was like, okay, I'll outwork everybody. That's how I'm going to, like, that's how I get ahead. That's how I make more money. That's how I feel more important, right? Like, I'm at the top, I'm competitive, But it's actually, that busyness will eventually you can't sustain that. Right. Mentally, physically, emotionally, you just get shut off.
Exactly.
And I think that's where, like, I feel like God has been the most obvious to me. It's like, he'll push that button.
Yeah.
Like, he'll be like, nah. Boop,
yeah. No.
Chill out.
Yeah. You need to rest. Yeah. Our pastor actually used a car as a metaphor, like an they brought a car on the stage. And our pastor was talking about, like, how if you run that car and the RPMs are in the red continuously, what's that car going to do? Like, it's going to burn out. Like, you cannot, as a human being, like, what do? You take the car, you pull it over, or you park it and you get the oil changed, you pop the hood, like, you examine it, you get it, you take it in for regular maintenance. But, like, we're doing all these things to protect our cars, yet we're doing the exact opposite for ourselves. We're running our RPMs in the red. We're not taking time to meet with a life coach or a counselor. We're not taking the time to rest, and we burn out. And it's just, like you said, it is not sustainable.
It's not, and we like to think it is. I think that there's a lot of we have to also check the reasons why we're doing things. I find that I do a lot of it to feel valuable, or something like that. Like, it's like, and then I feel like pulling back. Like, when I think about pulling back, like, oh yeah, do less, right? Like, my mind, our minds know, it's like, yeah, of course, we hear this and we're like, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. But there's actually a lot of emotional connections. Like, there's subconscious things. There's a lot of wiring to do that. It's like, okay, well, I pull back. Well, what does it make me feel? What does it feel? Do I feel, less important? Do I feel like, I'm not contributing as much? Like, because a lot of that stuff is actually not true. You know? So I think I think that it's critically important. And if you find yourself, and I'm like that too, running really fast, I think that it's a bigger conversation you need to have with yourself. And a life coach for me has been I swear by that. Like, perspective is powerful. So, but yeah, no, it's become a badge. And I think that we also don't realize how much more we have to process on a daily basis than we used to. You know what I mean? It's like, it's the amount of information we have and the amount of stuff we have to do or can do or should do, or, however we process that is extreme.
It
right
really
at this point in time in our life. And also, I think the second thing I'd say on that is, like, we go through seasons in life where we have different types, we're in different states frames of mind, like mentally, emotionally, emotional energy, things like that. And so the way we operate in one season may or may not work in another. And I think that we just have to release that too.
Oh, absolutely.
You might have been able to do all this stuff, but now you have kids, like, we have two, and it's like that same operating model is not going to work.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
So yeah, the badge of busyness is dangerous. It's
really
very
is.
dangerous.
Yeah. And I mean, I started seeing a counselor, a therapist, whatever you want to call her, this year after walking through a lot of just personal tragedy this year. And it's the first time in 33 years I've ever really seen a counselor. I saw a counselor like maybe twice when I was in middle school and once after my mom died when I was in high school. And I was like, nah, this isn't for me. And that was a huge mistake. And so here I am at 33 walking through like 20 years of pent up grief. It's fine. It's fine. But I think the more that we can talk about those things and be like, hey, it's okay to get help. Like, you're not a broken person or a bad person because you need to get a counselor. In fact, like, I think you're the opposite. Like, you are strong for saying, hey, you know what? I need somebody to help me work through this crap.
No, that's okay. Yeah, you're speaking my language. I'll throw, like, I literally, like, I saw so much improvement with ADHD counseling. I mean, early on, especially in my marriage, in my life, and like that. Like I'm like, even though it was really uncomfortable and I had to walk through that, like I'll throw bodies at an issue. Like when I'm battling something, I'll have multiple people.
Yeah.
I'll just counsel her up. Like I don't even care because I'm at the point where it's like, yeah, you need help, and it's okay because everyone needs help.
Yep.
And I think that's the thing too, is to realize it's like getting help. I mean, you can only be better if you get help.
Yep.
And so and like I know that a lot of people with counseling, there's negative connotations. They're afraid of things being brought up, but like things can't heal unless they're really set properly. And there's a lot of things going on in your subconscious and in the way you're feeling and the way you're wired that you don't even realize.
Yep.
That's for me. That's been the whoa. Like pulling back, and you're like, oh my gosh, all this stuff is happening. I mean, we're talking like, and with my life coach Amanda now, it's been a couple years and we're still unpacking new things. I mean, like, it is crazy how much is under, how many things happen, how many wires get connected as we grow up, or how we interpret things or whatever. And so it's super, super valuable. But counseling is, I can't say enough about it. And again, you can call it what you want to. It's just getting perspective from a third party their interest is in seeing you help yourself.
Yes.
And like, that's a win-win.
Yeah. They have no agenda. Like they're there as an unbiased person to be able to really speak into what you need to hear and not necessarily what you want to hear. So
exactly.
that was something I had to really get used to this year, was sometimes when my counselor would say something to me that was not what I wanted to hear, but what I knew I needed to hear. And that, it's like if you work out and go to the gym, like you have to break the muscles down in order to build them back up. And so it's the same.
Uncomfortable, yeah.
Yeah, you have to get uncomfortable. I know you're loving this chat with Marshall, and I wanted to take a moment to thank our sponsor of the show who is able to help make it possible, and that is Cultivate What Matters. This is something I talk about all the time, and that is pursuing our God-given dreams and goals. You want to be the person you were made to be, but your time, heart, and energy have been sucked dry by guilt, distractions, and not knowing where to go next. Enter the Power Sheets. I have personally been a Power Sheets user for over 3 years, and they have completely transformed how I set goals and grow both personally and professionally. This incredible 1-year intentional goal planner from Cultivate What Matters is ready to help you uncover intentional goals and live them out. It's absolutely for anyone. Love-at-home moms, students, CEOs, entrepreneurs, women in any season of life who need a grace-filled system that works. Thousands of women all over the world have made their goals happen with the Power Sheets, your day planner's best friend. The Power Sheets are a proven process that works and includes 12 full months of goal-setting worksheets to help you make your goals a reality. Are you ready to live on purpose? If you want to finally be the woman you were created to be, free of pressure and the need to be perfect, head to stillbeingmolly.com/cultivate now to order your Power Sheets and explore the entire 2019 collection. Now, back to my conversation with Marshall. So I want to go back. There's a couple other things that you had mentioned that I really want to touch on. And one of the things that you mentioned was so good about so often businesses, they think that slapping on some type of nonprofit donation is going to give them purpose. And I loved the way you're just like when they slap it on there at the end, because I'm like, yes, I see that so often. And when you are able to give back with purpose, so you have intention in whether it's a give back model or a partnership model. And I really love what you guys are doing specifically at I Heart Dogs, not just in the, like I said at the beginning, like I love dogs. And so I was like really excited to talk to somebody who is using a business to not only give back to dogs because dogs are awesome, but there's another piece of that I am is a personal connection of mine, and that is using or connecting veterans with PTSD with service animals. So my mom was a Vietnam veteran who suffered from PTSD ever since she got back from Vietnam until the day she died. And it was not something that she died in 2002, but from the time, when she got back from Vietnam, nobody talked about PTSD. Nobody talked about it. And it took years, decades. And one of the things that my mom talked about in her memoir was that when she got back from Vietnam and she was in therapy, she did not even tell her therapist she was in Vietnam. Like, that's how repressed it was. And that's how ashamed she was and how bad her PTSD was.
So weird.
Isn't that crazy?
It's like that's actually, well, we hear that and it's not crazy for them. And it's actually very common.
Yeah.
It's especially that generation because of all the things. There's political issues. There was there's a lot. And I think that, 100%. And it's one of those things where, one of the big reasons I love animals or I love dogs is because they're so therapeutic for people. For sure. Whether it's therapeutic for people who have PTSD, which is one of our initiatives, or just like being at home, they tend to be, they just give so much positive energy, and they're so happy to see you, and they, it's just, there's this, like, they do something for us, our spirits as human beings, that just can't connect with people on a deeper level, like an emotional level, and so obviously PTSD. There's a lot of factors. It gives them purpose. It gives them the ability to actually function better, right? Like there's so many benefits to that. So, but like I think that now we're realizing the impact of war at a different level than we did before, and it's not just winning or losing. It's actually there's a lot more. Like the blast radius is a lot bigger than we realized because a lot of people just didn't want to talk about it. Yep.
Yeah.
So, but I totally, and I think that for that one specifically, like that's where we really love that program because it gives back. And so here's the other thing, going back to your other question in regards to like just kind of, hey, like when someone's doing it for like we're really smart, we're pretty savvy people in general. I mean by like, just if you operate in this century that we're in and you're involved in, all the stuff we're involved in, like social media, Facebook, whatever, internet, like you when something is like just kind of like done to do, when you're being sold. And I think marketers don't realize that like people understand that, we're going to, 10% of this goes here. Like it used to be a big deal. It's not anymore. In fact, people expect it now. Like they expect if I'm going to engage with a brand, they're going to do something, good in the world. And so I think that's where people like just slapping it on. So what we do, actions speak louder than words, right? So one of our things is we actually tell the story of our impact as much as possible. So when we're making donations to shelters or feeding shelter animals or whatever, we do video footage of the shelters. We tell the stories of dogs that have been adopted. We do live videos in the shelters. We show kind of like all the places they're going. Like we tell the story. So like if you think about it like a 360-degree loop, when you're giving back, a lot of times it's like people will just say, okay, here it is. And then you don't know. Like you buy a bottle of water, it's like, okay, when 10% went somewhere. Yeah. Did it not? I don't know. Like you're probably just buying it for the water.
Yeah.
But for us, we're closing the gap. We're like, oh no, here it is. And we send emails. In fact, you get an email every month from our site showing exactly what you did.
That's
So
so
if you
cool.
if you bought a couple dog toys, then you'll get an email every month to say, hey, by the way, here's how many dog toys you donated to shelters. We make it a point of connecting what actually is happening and the real impact to the front messaging, you know, like, hey, this is what you're doing. And it's unbelievable what happens. It's like, oh, wow, because it gives credibility. It's like, you really follow through with all that. And it's like, yeah, we did, you know?
Yeah. And that's a huge piece because there are so many businesses that over the years have had this quote unquote give back or purposeful component. And then it comes out later that that was never actually happening. And that, that just like.
And I think that like that happens a lot in the church too. Like, or people, there's a perception there in certain types of very visible churches. Yeah, no, and I think that even more so, like we're just skeptical by nature. Like we're the fake news generation, right? Like we just are skeptical. So when you see a business, you're like, okay, well, yeah, do they whatever? But then you see, wow, they're actually, like that's them doing it. That's them doing this. That's them doing this. Like people think we're a nonprofit. It's like they literally are like, oh, we have people sending us checks to make donations to us, and we're not like, because we do the storytelling like a nonprofit should, right? Like here's what we're doing. And so there's transparency and accountability, and what you get from that is ultimately trust. Yeah. Like, and when you have trust, you can do anything. I mean, that is powerful force, you know, and so I think that like. You basically like it's when it comes down to giving back, there's a lot of really cool ways you can. I'd encourage anyone to take it a step further. Like, how can you give back and document that journey? Because it's going to change you too. Yeah. So like when we go through seasons of business, they're harder. If we were just like disconnected to like cutting checks, you know, they would be the same season. But the fact that we're involved in storytelling so much, you go through it and you're like, that maybe that season was challenging, but look at what we did in the world, and look how many people are changed, and look how many things happened, and look how people are thankful, and look how many people are happy, and like look how many people are changed, lives are different, and you're like, you know, that wasn't that bad. Like it might be a challenging season business side, but it was that's even a challenging business cycle is a successful cycle in giving back. Yep. So it gives you that motivation, like when you need that extra, like to keep going, which everyone does at some point in time or multiple times like us. It gives you a way to say, it gives you a rally point to come back to. And you have people who are really excited, really positive about what you're doing. It makes a difference. Like it's being, you know, when you surround yourself with people who are passionate and you're helping them do what they would love, like they will keep you going. So there's a lot of, and we do it, and that's a byproduct. We don't do it just to get that feeling, right? But if you're, as a business, especially if you figure out what your audience is passionate about, really like what moves their heartstrings, like what makes them feel like, wow, I'm so pumped, and then go out there and do that and do it well and share those stories and connect people, amazing things can happen.
Yes. Amen to all of that. Amen. So, you know, what is on the horizon for I Heart Dogs? So you guys, obviously you have this huge, this massive online community. You, like we were talking about earlier, like, man, people love their dogs. They committed. Yep. But really, you have this massive online community, and this was really birthed out of a combination of your heart for serving, in addition to the community really speaking up and saying, we want to be a part of something bigger. And so you have all these different components. So you have this sort of give back component in which you're donating items to shelters and taking care of dogs who are in shelters and featuring stories like that, and which is just awesome because I am all about rescuing dogs because they are the best. And which, quick digression, I loved what you said about dogs just have this very therapeutic aspect. I mean, there's a whole reason that there's an entire industry of therapy dogs. My dad's dog, who sadly died a couple years ago from cancer, but we got her right after my mom died, and my dad and I was a senior in high school, and we got Maggie Super Bowl Sunday after my mom died, so January of 2003. And she died, I guess, she died 2 years ago, 2 years ago. And but Maggie, man, Maggie was awesome. She was a rescue. She was a border collie lab mix, and this dog was freaking smart. Like, she was a genius. And my dad actually got her trained to be a canine good citizen, and so she was able to go and do be a therapy dog. But in a lot of ways, she really, in the end, became a therapy dog for my dad, because my dad, lost the love of his life, and then he had a lot of stuff happen to him, just in those years. And like, Maggie was like, that was his bet. Like, when people say like a dog is Maggie was my dad's best friend. He talked to her like a human, and she would respond. Like, I was just like, how did she understand that? Like, I don't understand how she just knew what you just said. Because he'd be like, hey, Maggie, can you go over there and grab me this or whatever? And she'd get up and she'd go get it.
Yeah, no, and it's crazy because like the bond that people form with him, I feel like it has a lot to do with, especially like the space they take up in our lives. Psychologists and neuroscientists actually realize, I mean, in backing this in, it's like we grieve for a pet like we grieve for a human.
Yeah.
Like it's the same process, and it's the same feeling, it's the same work. And some people don't understand that, and some do. Yeah. I think the more challenging events we go through, the more loyalty we have to anyone, and I think that certainly happens with dogs. Like, the more they're there for us, they show up.
Yeah.
And I think that they're the example of like when someone just shows up in a non-judging way just to be there. Like, they don't solve our problems, they're just present.
Yeah.
And so like, I think it's an interesting model for us as humans to like in that way, but they certainly have a therapeutic component. Yeah. And so like, when we think about the homes they go into, they change those homes.
Yeah.
So you're adding another element. So, and then those people's lives are changed, and that's really exciting for us too. It's like you're adding an element to people's lives, or helping them with an element that it's really important to them. It's like, it's a family member.
Yeah.
And so that we like to live there, because it, like, if you're trusted to take care of a family member, then you're trusted.
Yeah. Yeah. I have two dear friends who they have children, just beautiful children with special needs, and have both been granted support animals in the last year or so. One of them, the dog is still in training, because one of my friends, her daughter has epilepsy, and the dog, I want to say the training is going to take like almost 2 years. For that particular situation. And I have another friend who just has a sweet little boy with a mitochondrial disorder, and their dog is just incredible. Like, just the way that they have been able to train him. He's still being trained as we go, but just to see some of the things that she shares online that he's able to do. And he's able to like help her son take off his socks and like things like that. Isn't that so cool?
It is very cool.
It's really cool. And so, I'm just like, man, God was so generous when he gave us dogs. So awesome.
Yeah. That's why I feel like people, it's really connected to them, because like they really do engage us in a way that we're wired. You know what I mean? And so
we long for that.
We long for it. In a world today where we're more connected but less connected.
Yeah.
I think that they have a real place, because they're present. And so Yeah. 100%.
And so how exactly does the program work where you guys are connecting dogs with veterans who have PTSD?
We're actually funding that. So as you know, like, there's two different types of placements. So like some people, there's full-blown training, which takes 2 or 3 years. It's an extremely expensive process. And there's no government program for it. Like, there's either grants or they got to figure it out. And so a lot of guys don't get that.
Yeah.
The other one is actually placing companion animals. So it's like they'll fund the veteran to adopt a dog.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. It's like they're not trained, but they're there.
Yeah.
They're present. Some come with training, some there's light training. So it's like a spectrum of both. And so what we actually do is we sell military-themed apparel and gear. So we do like paracord bracelets and stuff like that. And we use the funding from that to directly support fund veterans toward. So fun training dogs that take a long time for veterans who really need it, as well as covering costs or helping with food or anything like that, so a veteran can actually get a dog.
That's awesome.
So it's all military themed stuff. So it's like paracord bracelets and military themed shirts, and that, like, it's stuff for people that want to support our military.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly what it was called, but I watched and I don't know if it was like a mini documentary or just like a 60 Minutes type thing. It wasn't 60 Minutes, but about a program in Texas where they actually take rescue dogs into the prison system. And then the prisoners are trained to train the dogs that will then eventually become PTSD support animals.
Cool.
It's like, I cried nearly the entire episode because it talked about how, like, through the process, not only because a lot of the dogs that are being taken and put into this program are dogs that are strays, or they were about to be euthanized in a shelter, that kind of thing. So they've got it's like a rehabilitation for the dog, and then they've found that the recidivism rates of the inmates that are working with these animals is lower than ever. They're talking about how, like, anxiety and depression and, like, fights and things like that, like issues in the prison system are dropping because they're like they're connecting to this animal as they feel like they have a purpose now in connecting to this animal. And then in the end, a veteran who suffers from PTSD is also benefited. So you have, like, all these different communities that are being benefited through this program. I literally just sobbed the entire time I was watching this because I was like, I can't handle this. This is too many feelings.
Right. And it's that, I love that. Like, I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and in ways to incorporate dogs. Like, another example of one we're working on is basically building out a place for women who are abused to when they seek shelter. I guess, like, there's this crazy statistic. It's like 60 or 70% don't get away because they don't want to leave their pet at home. Ugh. There's that bond of, like, hey, you've been here for me. I need to get out. If I leave you here, I'm not really sure what happened. I feel guilty. I feel bad, like, literally. And so we can actually outfit women's shelters with places to have pets. And so the amount of women who take up on that is drastically higher. It's amazing. Wow. And so, like, things like that, where it's just like, so that, like, we're helping people through helping their pets. Yeah. And I think that's just the purpose. That's the like, it's fun living in that world for us. We really enjoy it. We get a lot of value out of it. Yeah. But any way we can connect the dots where we can help people's lives and pets' lives too together, that for us, that's a win-win. Oh, that's what we like to live.
Oh, Marshall, that's so good. Gosh, I love it. Well, clearly I could talk to you all day. But now is the time of the show where we actually are going to transition a little bit to just ask some fun get-to-know-you questions. Okay. So this is also the portion of the show, as my listeners know, where my husband, my amazing husband, who's my executive producer, inserts a sound effect or movie clip, TV clip of some kind to transition us to the get-to-know-you round. I never know what it's going to be. Every week it's a surprise. So it usually has somewhat of a relation to the conversation that we've had, but a lot of times it is completely random. So,
She is really giving him a thorough going over. Are all judges that thorough? I mean, yes, she looks at the teeth.
It's very important that all the attributes are examined. Teeth, eyes, ears, gums.
Am I seeing right? Where's she putting her hands now?
She's just checking out the dog's testicular area to make sure that everything is intact.
Hate to go out on a date with Judge Edie Franklin, have her judge me. That'd be no fun.
The first question is, if you had to eat the same meal for dinner every night for the rest of your life, what would it be?
It'd probably be sushi.
Oh, yes, sushi. Now, it's Wednesday, and, well, actually, we're recording this on a Wednesday, and this airs on a Wednesday. And Wednesday at the grocery store that my husband and I love, it's called Sprouts. Sprouts right here, it's $5 sushi day. And their sushi is legit. Like, it is not, you're like, grocery store sushi. No, it is good grocery store sushi, and it's $5, all their sushi. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to $5 sushi today. Yes. All right. What was your favorite TV show to watch growing up?
TV show, actually, probably Popeye.
Popeye, I love it.
Yeah, like that was my favorite. Like that was it. So like I just love that one because you have a guy who is always in tough situations, and he kind of summons an inner, through spinach, he summons kind of an inner like gumption to like overcome. I thought that was so cool.
I'm Popeye the Sailor Man.
Yep.
Doot, doot. All right. Anyway, sorry.
I know, that's fun. No, yeah, my kids watch that. It's just the best ever.
I love it. That's awesome. What is a dream that you have yet to achieve?
Oh, it's really traveling the world. So and I want to do it with my wife. She's just so much fun. She's just a great partner. And like I keep asking her, hey, the kid's old enough to travel yet? It's like we have an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old just turned 3, and so the 3-year-old's still not there to do like real traveling.
Yeah.
So eventually, like I just I love experiencing new things. So like I could travel. Like I love traveling. So that's one of the dreams is once the kids get old enough, and then we're gonna have some fun, get out, see the world, experience new cultures, new people, things like that.
I like it. That's awesome. And my last question is, what are you most grateful for today?
Oh man, there's so much. Because when you ask me that question, there's a flood of things that I get.
Yeah.
I think that just being able to be in a place where I can use my gifts and skills in a way that not only my family benefits, but also the world benefits, is the greatest. I think I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity to be responsible for that. And because there's many seasons where, you're like, what the heck's going on in my life? Like, where am I going?
Yeah. And
then just like really looking back, like, wow, it was all moving to this direction. And I wouldn't change anything for it. So and obviously, like, a big part of that is being really grateful for my family and our lives, and just being able to just exist together and have fun together and grow up together and learn together and take the world on together. And as an entrepreneur, I think that, and you know this too, it's like there's not as much of a black and white start and stop with work and family. Like my family is part of everything I do. So even though my vocation may be over here, like they carry the burden of that. Right. They are part of that. They benefit directly from that. So like they're an instrumental part of me being able to do what I do too. And so I'm grateful for that whole picture of like their support, and then also being able to make money, make a profit, and have a purpose.
Oh, man. Marshall, that is so good. This has just been so much fun. You are just an incredible human being. I love what you are doing with I Heart Dogs. I mean, just the amount that you guys have, the amount of impact that you have had on both animals and on people is incredible. And I mean, you guys have been named one of the nation's fastest growing companies by Inc. 5000. So that's pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate you too. I love it. You've done a wonderful job with this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm going to have all of that information on Marshall and iHeartDogs.com, which a lot of the listeners probably are. If you have dogs, you may already be a part of their community. So I will have all the information in the show notes as usual. But Marshall, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Same here. Thank you.
Marshall is absolutely incredible, and what he has done to impact the lives of dogs and people is so amazing. His heart and passion are contagious. I hope you were inspired like I was. Another huge thank you to this week's podcast sponsor, Cultivate What Matters. Visit stillbeingmolly.com/cultivate to take the first step of getting your life back and cultivating what matters in 2019. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you're a first-time listener of the show, welcome. Be sure to visit the archives from past shows featuring amazing entrepreneurs and business owners who are literally changing the world with their businesses. And if you are a regular listener of the show, thank you so much for tuning in and week out, and thank you for your support. Be sure to head on over to iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Overcast, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you are subscribed. Clicking that subscribe button helps to make sure you never miss a new episode of the show. And while you're there, would you mind taking a moment to leave a review of the show? Leaving a review of the show helps me to know what you're liking and how the show is personally impacting you. And if you share the show on social media, be sure to use the hashtag Business with Purpose Podcast or tag me at Still Being Molly on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. This show is edited by my amazing husband and executive producer, John Stillman, and the music is by Mark Killian of Third Wheel Media. Thank you so much for listening, and go do something good with purpose on purpose.